What up, guys? Another Adonis review. Today I am doing Resident Evil 7, and the reason I'm doing Resident Evil 7, especially so quickly, is because I just realized I never have. Um, Resident Evil 7 came out in 2017, and when I think about when video games peaked and hit their kind of like ideal of graphics and just how good graphics can look, to where basically it's like, okay, graphics look good. At this point, it can only look like it's not really looking better at this point. I mean, it could look better, of course, but it's really just about how hard does a game designer want to work, or how many gigabytes do we want to accept in a game, because we say that we want, a game to look amazing and as realistic as possible, but we also get mad at Call of Duty for having like 150 gigabyte fucking game, that eats up our whole fucking PS, 5 and Xbox Series X storage. So, with that being said, Resident Evil 7, top tier game, beautiful graphics. It's just amazing looking. And basically, when I think about this game and think about how fantastic it was playing it normally, it blows my mind that much more when I played in VR. And there's not many games in VR to this day that look as good as Resident Evil 7 does, especially on the PlayStation. Half-Life Alyx will live up to it on, but that's not for the PlayStation. Obviously, when the PSVR 2 comes out and we get the Horizon Forbidden West and Resident Evil 8 in VR, it'll be beautiful. But until then, Resident Evil 7 is kind of like one of the highest tiered quality games, not only just in normal game quality, but also in VR quality. And if it's something that you haven't played yet, I hope this review can push you to do it. Whether you're a person who only plays multiplayer games, a person who only plays open world games, a person who doesn't play horror games, a person who doesn't like Resident Evil, I don't care what type of person you are in the world, that you only play racing games, I don't care. This game is a game for you. This is a game that you should play. You'll not dislike it. I don't care who you are, you will not dislike this game. It just really shows you how great VR is and how cool it's just they push the cylinders on all fucking, I don't know the fucking saying, they push cylinders and gas out the cylinder fucking holes. I don't know. It's awesome. Now I'll quickly go over what the game's about, just in case you've been living under a rock and have no fucking clue. But quite simply, you are a dude looking for his wife, and you basically found out last time she was seen was at this fucking redneck hillbilly house in the middle of the swamp. So you go to find her, and all hell breaks loose. The whole hillbilly's been like infected with black goo, Resident Evil shit, and fucking it basically makes them like inbred fucking mutated monsters that can't be killed, or at least can't be killed easily. And essentially you're just kind of going through the house trying to survive, doing classic Resident Evil puzzles and finding fucking weird ass fucking locks and pegs to open doors and shit like that, while also still trying to save your beloved. And they do an awful lot in a small area, because essentially this whole game takes place in, to give it its most grandiose wording of scale, in like a manor. It's basically like a pretty big house that has basements and fucking several fucking rooms, and this everything a house can basically have, it has it. It's pretty large. And then in front of the house, there's a little fucking trailer that's kind of like your save point, the safest place you can be in the game. And then there's like a swamp deck, with like a secondary kind of like guest house of sorts. It's also has a lot of rooms and shit, more than a normal house would have. And that's kind of like the core of it. And essentially your whole gameplay will essentially just be trying to get into one of the upstairs rooms, and then the other downstairs rooms, slowly unlocking doors to get more weapons and better, more ammo, and then you're gonna slowly start fucking just genociding this family one by one until there's no one left. Is the easiest way to say it. But man, there's a lot of good in this game and not that much bad. I mean, just thinking about the good, like I said, graphics hold up with any graphics you'd have today. Again, when it comes to PlayStation VR, these are the top tier graphics. It's the best graphics you're going to get. This game looks good if you're not playing it in VR. If you're just playing normally, you'll have hella fun. And that's why it's so much better in VR. It's crazy you can enjoy it so much without VR. While playing it in VR just blows my mind. A gorgeous game. And if you're a fan of horror, you know, a lot of people feel like Resident Evil kind of doesn't have the horror, or they, you know, this is probably be more accurate, you know, when it first came out. If I was talking to people who when Resident Evil 7 and 8 didn't exist. But the horror is top notch. It really feels, they always have that foreboding feeling that someone's, you know, just behind you somewhere. And it's fucking freaky. And of course, you know, classic Resident Evil, you know, you're always kind of running low on ammo. You got to make sure your shots count and you hit the headshots, you know, or else you're going to be fucked and just have a knife and you're going to get your ass fucked up all day. Story, you know, I think it's like a 7 to 10 hour game, which actually I feel like it feels longer, but it's probably like 7 to 10 hours. But it's just it's the perfect amount of length, especially like I've said before, for a VR game. You know, VR can give you headaches and get you woozy and stuff. So it's nice to cut this kind of game up, especially with how kind of intimidating it is and scary, to kind of cut it up into as short as possible, but it's good enough to have it bang for your buck. Yeah, and the story giving's great. You know, it's definitely well done and it gives you a lot of depth and feeling for the characters. It's just an all-around good game. If I talk about negatives, the biggest negative I really think of when it comes down to this game is just lack of diversity when it comes to the enemies. You know, basically the number one enemy you fight, you know, beyond the fucking family, is like weird tar monsters. And there's like maybe like one variation of it. Not creative. That's definitely a bummer. Because there's times when you're wandering and you're scared and you're scared of what might come out. And then after a certain amount of time, you realize that there's only one monster that's going to come out, and that's that fucking goo monster, the black tar monster. And that shit's not that scary, you know, and all be all. I mean, even if they had zombies, it'd be fucking scarier than the fucking tar monsters that are in here. So that's definitely the biggest pitfall. I don't know if it was way too much graphically to put different types of creatures and monsters in here. But yeah, you're basically fighting the tar monster and the family. You know, different versions of the tar monsters. So that's kind of the one downfall if I was to really say anything. The family is a pretty interesting fight. You know, they all kind of transform themselves into this weird, different type of monstrosities that differ and change and kind of are based off, you know, the type of family member they are. You know, that whether they be a dad or you know the mom. So that is kind of interesting and cool. But I mean, if I think about the negatives, that's kind of the main one. There's not really anything beyond that. It runs smooth. It runs crisp. You know, the way they have the puzzles and gameplay goes. There's definitely no fault in it. They have like videotapes that you can connect. Oh, and then another great thing, you know, is the DLC. They do have DLC for this. They just started releasing the first DLC for Resident Evil 8, which is like a standalone game where you kind of play as the daughter of Ethan growing up. I'll probably try that out soon. But I know that's a third person, so I'm interested to see how that's going to play out, you know, when the VR version of the game comes out. But they've actually hit pretty hard with the DLC. It's definitely worth it to get the deluxe edition. One of my favorite things by far is they have, if you know how popular escape rooms are in the world, you know, where you can go out with a friend and go to an escape room and you try to escape it. Like, they made a Resident Evil version of Escape Room. Now, the bummer is that obviously once you've done it once, you've done it, you know how to get out and do it. But the first time you do it, it's interesting. You got to figure out how the fuck to escape, you know, this room with what you have. without being caught and murdered by the fucking family. So, and it's all in VR. Fucking really neat, really fucking creative way to do it. And they have a few other ones. They have different, you know, DLCs that go with the story a little bit. They have a whole DLC where you play as like a fucking family member, and you're fucking some badass motherfucker, and you just sock your way through fucking monsters. It's fucking sick. And they have like ones where you like survive rounds and stuff. Like they really outdid themselves. And I feel like I don't know if Resident Evil 8 is gonna deliver on all fronts with the DLC that they have, but I feel like a lot of single player games nowadays don't really give you that much when it comes to DLC. You know, if anything, you know, it's not many Witcher 3s that give you blood and wines. I guess is the best way to put it. And I feel for like a Resident Evil game, the DLC that you get in this is fantastic. And that brings me to my last point, which is the price. Since the Resident Evil's gone down and it's been out for a little bit now, you can usually find this shit dirt cheap. And usually the VR is mixed with the typical version, so if you buy one or the other, you're getting both. So it's not like you have to buy a specific VR version or not. You know, maybe I think if you even own Resident Evil 7, if you have a VR, you can just go into VR mode. I don't think there's a specific thing. But even if you had to buy a specific version, like I said, Resident Evil 7 is always on sale. It's always like $7 or so. $7 to $10, maybe $15 for the deluxe edition, so it's for sure worth it. So if you've never tried Resident Evil 7 before, and it's something that, you know, you've thought about maybe, you know, heard about, and you don't know if it's for you, because like I said, you're a person who only plays multiplayer or doesn't play horror or something, play it. Play it. You know, I don't care who you are, I don't care if you don't finish it. You turn that on, you start playing it, you're gonna respect it. You know, the work that's been done for it. And when Resident Evil 8 comes out on PSVR 2, which will probably be no one's first thing to buy because that shit's gonna be expensive to buy a PSVR 2. But you'll see that eventually, if you get the money, that and Horizon will probably be the dopest shit to play because it really outdid themselves with this. So again, if you end up playing this game because of my review, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Beyond that, catch you guys later.